You know how life settles into a rhythm? Not a bad one, necessarily, just predictable. That was me and Ilara. We'd been married, what, 5, maybe 6 years by then? Living in this old house out past the edge of town, the one that had been in her family for generations. It was quiet. Maybe too quiet sometimes, if I'm being honest. But it was ours. Ilara always said the house had bones. Good bones, but old ones that groaned and settled in the night. I never paid it much mind back then. It was just background noise to our life, the steady hum of routine. Ilara, she was something else. An artist, you know. Hyper-detailed drawings, mostly botanical stuff. Things that took incredible patience. That patience spilled over into everything. She organized our lives, kept track of bills, remembered birthdays I'd long forgotten. She was meticulous, grounded. My anchor, I guess you'd call her. If my head was in the clouds, thinking about work or whatever, Ilara had her feet planted firmly on the ground, probably sketching the weeds growing between the cracks in the pavement. I loved that about her, that certainty. In a world that felt increasingly chaotic, Ilara was constant. Her studio, a converted sunroom at the back of the house, was her sanctuary. Neat rows of pencils, carefully labeled jars of pigment, canvases stacked just so. It smelled faintly of turpentine and dried flowers. It was ordered, controlled, just like her. We had our routines, coffee together in the morning before I left for work, quiet dinners, maybe a movie on the couch. Comfortable. Normal. The house itself, though, sometimes it felt less normal. It was set back from the road, surrounded by woods that always seemed a bit too dark, even in summer. Locals had stories, of course. Old houses always do. Whispers about the family who built it, about strange occurrences, things people saw in the woods. Ilara usually dismissed them with a wave of her hand, attributing it to small-town boredom. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled through the eaves, or a floorboard creaked upstairs for no reason, I'd catch a look in her eye, a flicker of something old, something listening. I told myself it was just the artist in her, soaking up atmosphere. We were happy, I think. Or maybe just settled. There's a difference, isn't there? Looking back, maybe the predictability had started to feel less like comfort and more like stagnation. But I didn't question it. Why would I? Ilara was there. The house was there. Life moved forward one day at a time. It wasn't exciting, maybe, but it felt safe, secure, solid, like Ilara herself. I remember thinking, around that time, just before things started to unravel, how lucky I was, how I'd found this person who just fit, who understood the messy parts of me and somehow managed to smooth them out. She had this way of looking at me sometimes, a soft smile that made everything feel all right. It's strange, trying to hold on to that feeling now, that memory of normalcy. It feels like a lifetime ago, like a photograph of someone else's life. She had her quirks, sure. Who doesn't? Sometimes she'd get lost in thought, staring out the window for ages, completely still. Or she'd hum these little tuneless melodies. While she worked, ones I'd never heard before and couldn't quite catch. But they were her quirks. Part of the package. Part of the Ilara I knew. The one who kept everything, including me, from falling apart. The isolation of the house never really bothered me before. I liked the peace, the lack of neighbors peering over the fence. But Ilara sometimes commented on it, on how sounds carried differently out here, how the silence could feel heavy. She'd Started locking the doors earlier in the evening than usual, checking them twice. I teased her about it, told her she was reading too many spooky local histories. She'd just give me that tight little smile that wasn't really a smile and change the subject. Maybe the signs were there all along. Maybe the house was trying to tell us something. Maybe Elara, with her artist's sensitivity, picked up on it long before I did. Or maybe I'm just trying to find patterns now, trying to make sense of the senseless, trying to pinpoint the exact moment the ordinary started to fray at the edges, before it tore completely apart. All I know is, one night, the predictable rhythm of our life skipped a beat, and then it stopped altogether. It was late, maybe 2, 3 in the morning. The kind of deep, dead quiet where you can hear the blood humming in your own ears. I woke up suddenly. No specific noise, just a feeling, like the air in the room had changed, become heavy, charged. You know that feeling right before a thunderstorm? Like that, but inside the house, inside our bedroom. I lay there for a second, heart thudding against my ribs, trying to place the source of the unease. The room was dark, but not completely. Moonlight, weak and watery, filtered through a gap in the curtains, casting long, distorted shadows. Everything looked familiar, yet off. The wardrobe seemed taller. The pattern on the wallpaper seemed to shift slightly if I stared too long. I told myself I was dreaming, half-awake paranoia. I turned over, reaching for Elara, needing that familiar warmth, that solid presence beside me. My hand met empty, cool sheets. That jolted me fully awake. Elara never got up in the middle of the night, unless she was ill. I sat up, scanning the room. The shadows seemed deeper now, coalescing. And then I saw her, standing in the doorway. Just standing, a silhouette against the slightly less dark hallway beyond. She wasn't moving. Not even breathing, it seemed. Just there, a statue carved from shadow. "Elara?" I whispered, my voice cracking embarrassingly. "Honey? What's wrong? Are you okay?" Silence. My heart was hammering now. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. "Elara, you're scaring me. What are you doing?" She didn't turn. Didn't react for what felt like an eternity. The silence stretched, pulled taut like a wire about to snap. I could just make out the line of her shoulders, the shape of her head, still utterly motionless. Was she sleepwalking? I'd never known her to do that. But what else could it be? I started to swing my legs out of bed, intending to gently guide her back. Then she spoke. Her voice wasn't hers. It was flat, cold, utterly devoid of the warmth I knew. A voice scraped clean of all emotion. It sliced through the silence, sharp as glass. "It's not you in there anymore, is it?" The words hung in the air, heavy, impossible. My breath hitched. I froze halfway out of bed. What did she mean? It wasn't a question, not really. It was a statement, an accusation delivered with chilling certainty. Before I could form a response, before I could even process the sheer wrongness of it, she turned. Not towards me, but away. She simply melted back into the hallway shadows and was gone. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I sat there on the edge of the bed, shivering, though the room wasn't cold. The sheets where she should have been felt impossibly empty. Her words echoed in the oppressive quiet. "It's not you in there anymore, is it?" What the hell did that mean? A nightmare? Had she had a nightmare and was talking in her sleep? But that voice, That cold, dead voice wasn't Ilara's. I strained my ears, listening for her footsteps downstairs, the sound of the bathroom, door, anything. There was nothing. Just the groaning bones of the old house and the frantic beat of my own heart. Sleep was impossible after that. I just sat there, staring into the darkness where she had stood, until the first gray light of dawn crept through the window, feeling a type of fear I'd never known before, cold, insidious, and aimed directly at me. The days that followed were tense. Ilara acted like nothing had happened that night. When I tentatively brought it up, asking if she'd slept okay, she just gave me a brief dismissive shrug and said she didn't remember getting up. But something had shifted between us, irrevocably. The easy comfort was gone, replaced by a brittle awareness. Her touches, when they happened at all, were fleeting, almost accidental, and her skin felt strangely cool against mine. She'd flinch, sometimes if I moved too suddenly towards her. Conversations became minefields. Simple questions about our past would sometimes be met with a blank stare, followed by a hesitant, searching answer, her eyes scanning my face as if looking for clues. Other times, she'd ask me incredibly specific things. The exact color of the scarf she wore on our third date. The name of the stray cat we fed one winter years ago. Things even I struggled to recall instantly. Her gaze during these moments was unnervingly intense, analytical, like I was a specimen under a microscope and failing some crucial test. The house seemed to conspire with her unease. Objects would be subtly out of place. A framed photo on the mantelpiece tilted just slightly. A book I was reading left open on a different page in another room. The salt and pepper shakers switched on the kitchen table. Trivial things, easily dismissed on their own, but together they created a pattern of wrongness. And the smell, it started appearing more often. A faint, sickly sweet scent, like overripe fruit mixed with the metallic tang of ozone after a lightning strike. It would hang in a room for a few minutes, then vanish as quickly as it came. Ilara never seemed to notice it, or if she did, she never mentioned it. I started checking the locks obsessively, peering into shadows, the old house groaning around me like it held its breath. My own mind felt increasingly unreliable. I'd find myself forgetting simple things, appointments, names of colleagues I saw every day, and the memory gaps Ilara kept probing, they genuinely felt blank. Had we really gone to that specific beach where she claimed I got that terrible sunburn? I had no memory of it, just a vague sense of sun and sand that could have been anywhere. The dinner party where I apparently told a hilarious story? Nothing. Ilara would describe these events with perfect clarity, watching my face, and my inability to confirm them only seemed to deepen the suspicion in her eyes. Silas would remember that, she'd murmur, turning away, leaving me feeling frustrated and increasingly unnerved. Was I losing my mind? Was the stress finally getting to me? Then came the reflections. It started subtly. Catching my eye in the eye-time darkened living room window one evening, my reflection seemed slow, like it lagged a fraction of a second behind my actual movement. I shook my head, blamed tiredness. Another time, glancing at the black screen of the TV, the smile reflected back wasn't mine. It was too wide, stretched, predatory. It vanished instantly when I focused, leaving me with a racing pulse. I tried to replicate it in the bathroom mirror, contorting my face, but I couldn't capture that fleeting wrongness. It only happened when I wasn't looking directly, when I caught myself unawares. It fed a growing seed of doubt. Maybe Alara wasn't the only one seeing something amiss. Her time in the studio increased. The door, usually left ajar, was now almost always closed, often locked. The scent of turpentine was sometimes overlaid with that strange, sweet metallic odor drifting from under the door. Curiosity, gnawing anxiety, it drove me to look while she was out grocery shopping one afternoon. I found the lock surprisingly easy to pick, an old, simple mechanism. Inside, the usual order was disturbed. Canvases were turned to the wall, but several sketchbooks lay open on her work table. I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have, but I did. Page after page showed distorted human figures. Some were just frantic lines, barely recognizable. Others were disturbingly detailed. Faces stretched into impossible angles, limbs bent the wrong way, eyes depicted as empty sockets or swirling voids. And some had my features, twisted into monstrous parodies. My nose, my jawline, but stretched, warped. And the smiles, those wide, fixed, terrifying smiles I'd glimpsed in my own reflection. Scrawled in the margins were frantic notes. The eyes are wrong. It mimics the voice, but not the soul. Pattern doesn't match. How to break the anchor. Doors, the reflection lies. Then, chillingly, he doesn't remember the promise under the old oak. The real Silas would never forget. My blood ran cold. What promise? What oak? Beneath a loose floorboard, tucked away under a dusty rug, I found them 6 old leather-bound books. Not art books. Titles in faded gilt lettering spoke of local folklore, regional superstitions, Weason of the Woods, the Hollow Men of Black Creek, and, most disturbingly, on the nature of soul thieves and changelings. They were filled with archaic text and crude, woodcut illustrations of entities stealing identities, wearing human skin, driving loved ones mad. It felt like Alara wasn't just stressed. She was building a case, gathering evidence from shadows and whispers, convinced she was living with an imposter, convinced she was living with me. One night, unable to sleep, I wandered the dark hallway. The door to the studio was closed, but a thin line of light shone from underneath. As I got closer, I heard her voice, a low, intense whisper. Peeking through the keyhole, yes, I stooped that low, I saw her standing before that large, ornate antique mirror that came with the house, the one she kept covered most of the time. She wasn't looking at her reflection, but seemingly through it, or past it. Her whisper was a desperate, repeated chant. Show yourself. I know you're in there. Let him go. Show your true face. She held nothing, just stared into the glass with terrifying focus. I backed away slowly. The strange smell, stronger now, almost cloying, seeming to emanate from the room itself. The tests, the sketches, the books, the mirror. It all clicked into a horrifying mosaic. She wasn't just scared of me. She was actively trying to expose something she believed was hiding inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. The sideways glances, the flinching, the locked door, the weight of her unspoken accusation pressing down on me every second. The things I'd found in her studio, the things I'd started seeing in my own damned reflection. It was all churning inside. Me, a toxic mix of fear, anger, and a desperate need for clarity. I had to confront her. I needed her to look me in the eyes and see me. Silas, her husband. Not some monster from her folklore books or her nightmares. I waited until the next evening. She was tidying the already immaculate living room, moving with a tense, brittle energy. I walked in, holding one of the sketchbooks, my hand shaking slightly. I opened it to a page filled with those distorted faces, the ones that looked sickeningly like mine, yet utterly alien. The air crackled between us. "Ilara," I started, my voice rougher than I intended. "We need to talk. About this." I gestured towards the drawings. "About the books. About what you think is happening." I tried to keep my tone reasonable, pleading almost. "You're not yourself. This isn't healthy. Whatever you think you saw, whatever you're reading." She stopped moving. Slowly, she turned to face me. Her eyes weren't filled with the fear I expected, not entirely. There was fear, yes, deep and trembling, but underneath it was a layer of ice, a chilling certainty that made my stomach clench. She looked from the sketchbook in my hands to my face, her gaze sharp, assessing. "It means I was right," she said, her voice low but steady, carrying across the room with unnerving clarity. "I kept hoping I was wrong. I kept testing you, praying you'd remember, praying you'd slip up, and the real Silas would surface." Her eyes flickered back to the drawing. "But you didn't. You don't remember the things he would. The pact under the oak. The scar he got climbing the fence behind Miller's farm. The song my grandmother taught us." Her voice started to rise, trembling now. "And that night, the night I wrote about," she gestured vaguely towards the sketchbook again. "The night I saw you standing at the foot of the bed. The thing wearing your face smiled at me. That awful, wide smile. It wasn't him." "Ilara, that's crazy!" I took a step towards her, my hands outstretched, wanting to shake her, hold her, anything to break through this delusion. "It's me. It's always been me. Stress does strange things. Grief. The isolation out here." "No!" Her voice cracked, turning into a near shriek. She stumbled backward, away from my reaching hands, her eyes locked on mine with raw terror. "Stay away!" She bumped into a small end table, rattling a lamp, her movements frantic. "Don't touch me!" She scrambled backwards towards the hallway, towards the safety of her locked studio. "Ilara, please!" I cried, taking another step, desperation clawing at my throat. "Get away from me, thing!" The word hit me like a physical blow. She fumbled with the studio door handle, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She wrenched the door open, darted inside, and slammed it shut. The sharp, definitive click of the old lock turning echoed through the suddenly silent house. Then I heard it. The heavy scraping sound of furniture, her wooden easel probably, being dragged across the floor to barricade the door from the inside. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the living room, alone. The silence was absolute, broken only by the frantic pounding in my chest and the ghost of her scream hanging in the air. Thing. She had called me a thing. The sketchbook lay forgotten on the floor where I'd dropped it. The rupture was complete. The anchor was gone, and I was adrift in a terrifying silence, the accusations swirling around me like the dust motes dancing in the evening light. Time seemed to stop. I don't know how long I stood there in the hallway, staring at the locked studio door, the sound of the scraping barricade still echoing in my ears. The silence of the house pressed in, thick and suffocating. Thing. The word reverberated in my skull. You're not him. Her terror, her absolute conviction. It chipped away at my own defenses, my own certainty. Could stress really do this? Could grief or isolation twist reality so completely? Or was she? No, I wouldn't let myself think it. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed to see for myself, to anchor myself back to reality, my own reflection. That had to be the constant, right? My own face. I walked, numbly at first, then with increasing urgency, towards the downstairs bathroom. My footsteps felt loud on the old wooden floors. Each creak seemed to mock me. The bathroom was small, cramped, the single bulb overhead casting a harsh, unflattering light. I avoided looking directly into the mirror above the sink as I entered, my heart hammering against my ribs. I took a deep, shuddering breath, gripping the edges of the porcelain sink until my knuckles turned white. Then, slowly, I raised my head and forced myself to look. At first glance, it was me. Tired. Yes. Eyes wide with fear and confusion, lines of strain around my mouth. My hair was a mess. Just me. Silas. Stressed, terrified, but undeniably me. A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it almost made my knees buckle. See? It was just her, paranoia, her grief manifesting in this horrific way. It was all in her head. I needed to solidify it, to prove it to myself, beyond any doubt. I tried to smile. A normal smile. The kind I gave Alara every morning. The kind that used to make her smile back. I focused on the reflection, forcing my lips to curve upwards. And the relief shattered. The face looking back at me did smile. But it wasn't my smile. It stretched too wide, pulling the corners of my mouth into an unnatural, grotesque V-shape that felt alien on my own face. It was a rictus, a predatory baring of teeth that held no warmth, no humanity. And the eyes, my eyes, they stared back, but the familiarity was gone. They were flat, depthless, reflecting the harsh bathroom light like polished stones. There was an intelligence there, cold and ancient and utterly other. It was the face from Ilara's nightmares, the hollow smile she described, the thing she was terrified of. I gasped, stumbling back from the sink, knocking over a toothbrush holder that clattered loudly onto the tiled floor. My hand flew to my own mouth, feeling the normal shape of my lips, the familiar contours of my face. But the image in the mirror lingered, burned onto my retinas. That impossibly wide, chilling smile, those empty, watching eyes. Was it a trick of the light? A momentary hallucination brought on by extreme stress and lack of sleep? Or had I just seen the truth? Had Ilara been right all along? The memory lapses, the misplaced objects, the strange reflections. Were they glitches in my reality? Signs that the original Silas was gone, replaced by this? The folklore books, the doppelganger research, her frantic whispers. Suddenly, they didn't seem so crazy. I leaned against the cool tile wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor, my head in my hands. The house felt colder now, the silence more profound. From behind the locked studio door, there was no sound. Ilara was in there, barricaded against the monster she believed me to be. And out here was me, or the thing wearing my face, staring at my own hands, turning them over and over, searching for something familiar, something real. But all I felt was a growing, icy certainty that echoed Ilara's terror. The reflection hadn't lied, and I didn't know who or what I was anymore. The real question wasn't whether Ilara was crazy. The real question was, am I? And what happens? Now,